Welcome to the Lyons Share, where we talk family, faith, football, finance, and fun. I'm your host, Mitch Lyons. This episode brought to you, as always, by Mitch Lyons Wealth, your best game plan to protect, grow, and win retirement. And today we're going way back to my college days to bring on a former teammate that played football at Michigan State with me and went on to the bright lights of Hollywood and became the Bachelor. And a lot of people know him as Bachelor Bob, but he's Bob Guiney to me. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, buddy. It's great to see you again.
It
It's
is
been a
great.
while.
It's been a while. We saw each other at a football game a few years back, I think.
Yep.
But yeah, it's been a long while. You were a year behind me at Michigan State, and we had some fun down there.
Yeah, we
I'll
did.
tell the listeners you were a minute late coming on, and I was about ready to lock the door like George Perlis used to.
Oh, I hear you, bud. Yeah, they always used to tell us if you're a minute late, you should have been 10 minutes early. So,
Yeah, 10 minutes
yeah,
early is 10 minutes late, or something.
exactly. And I agree. Yeah, I was wrapping up a phone call and I was getting pulled into, answering some questions. And I finally just had to be like, guys, we'll have to pick this up another day. I got another appointment. I got to let you go.
No,
So,
no
yeah,
problem. I
sorry
just thought
about
I'd
that.
throw the Georgism at you there because we're all
Yes,
familiar with it.
sir.
So
We are
don't wear your
indeed.
hat, don't wear earrings inside, and you better not be late to the meeting. So, well, listen, let's go back to those days to start with, I guess. You came to Michigan State in 1993 and
Yeah.
a walk-on quarterback. And
Yep.
that's people who can't appreciate that's not an easy role at times. You're out there on the scout team, and I spent a year on scout team as well, so I know it all too well. How
Yeah.
I used to
Yeah.
feed like tight ends that were behind me on the depth chart when I knew Percy Snow was going to be in the middle, and you had a crossing route. I would let them take a rep.
Yes, yeah. I actually tell a story all the time about that. Uh, we were playing Indiana when the Randall L brothers were there, and for people who might not remember that, the brothers were pretty interchangeable. One would pop out to be a wide out, the other would be a quarterback, and
Antoine
our
Randall, Pittsburgh Steeler fame. Yeah.
yes, sir. Our buddy Jim Hepler and I were swapping spots that week, and I had a
A close
crackback
facsimile of those
situation.
athletic freaks.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I had a crackback on Percy that week, and I hadn't blocked anybody since eighth grade. And I remember asking one of our grad assistants if I was supposed to go 100%. He's like, absolutely, you go 110%. I'm like, okay, all right. I just because I've been wearing the red jersey every practice. I wasn't getting hit, so
Quarterbacks
I
don't
didn't
get
really
hit.
know. Yeah, I didn't really know if we were supposed to go 100%. So I'll never forget it as long as I live. I'm coming down like 5 yards off the ball. I start to come down on Percy, and as I'm about 10 yards away, I realize his his chin straps off, his shoulder pad straps are dangling, and I'm like, oh no, oh this is not good. And I'm going at a head of steam, and I just smack him, and I'll never forget. He looked at me. He goes, oh, so that's how it's going to be. I said, no, no. I said, coach, he's and Percy, of course, captain of the defense, says, run it again. And he's buckling up. And I'm like, oh man. And it knocked some sense into me that day. And I'll
Well,
never forget it. Yep.
Percy liked to walk around and, pinch the skin. He'd flex his forearm. He'd be like, pinch the skin because you couldn't pinch any. Give it a
Couldn't get
pinch.
any.
He had
The
rock
dude
arm
was a
Popeye forearms,
powerhouse.
and I'll never forget. I sent Bob Stuhlmaker, who was a walk-on
Yeah.
tight end. I gave Bob a rep when I recognized that it was going to be a crossing route and it was going to be thrown because it was already predetermined where they were throwing it, right? And Bob jumped in there, took his rep, and Percy just lit him up, caught him right under the
Oh,
chin, and Bob was out cold. And I was like, "Ooh, I'm glad I
yeah.
avoided that one." So,
Dodged a
but
bullet. Yep.
yeah,
Well
so
done.
you did your time there, and so you come out of Michigan State. What's next in your life coming right out of school? I mean, the next I
Yeah.
guess the next 10 years. I guess what was Bob doing? I know you had the band back in college days, Fat Amy,
Yeah.
which
Yeah, we signed a big deal actually. That was it. I mean, I graduated and our band had gotten so my senior year I took a medical. So I walked on in 90 and I was actually already kind of a little backstory. I was already committed to Miami of Ohio at that time. And my uncle, who I grew up going to every single Michigan State home game with, he played at Michigan State back in the national championship days and so I grew up coming to every single Michigan State home game, and he was excited that I was going to Miami, Ohio, but he passed away. And I was like, if I'm gonna play, I'm gonna play at Michigan State. I got to prove to myself I can do it. That's the school I love. And of all people, I called his best friend, who I also knew his uncle Lloyd Carr at U of M, and Lloyd made the call for me to go to Michigan State. He was like, "Why don't you come here?" I'm like, "No, I need to play at State." And so one of my favorite memories was every Michigan State game was, being on the 50-yard line with my Uncle Lloyd, getting a quick picture, and my high school girlfriend who was a Michigan cheerleader too. So they were in their maize and blue. I was in the green and white, and those are some memorable moments. But yeah, senior year I took a medical, and I had been playing in a band a little bit on the side there, and the band became like a full-time thing. And we won a couple Battle of the Band contests, and one of them was like a Grand Rapids thing, like an Eris Hamper's Hometown Rock Search. And so we got to Verve Pipe had won it the year previous. They told us we should do it, so we did it, or 2 years previous. We got to record an album for free, and then they took us on the road with them, and we'd end up doing this Ticketmaster music showcase thing, and signed a deal with MCA, and that became a full-time job. I mean, I was on the road all the time, and I'm sure my parents were proud now that I look back in retrospect, but they did make me get my degree first, which
So,
I'll
so
make
you
my
were
kids do
touring
the
with
same.
Verve Pipe?
Yeah, well, we toured with them a lot for their college shows. Yeah. And then we got onto this compilation thing that they had done as well. And as a result, it was called the Aware Music Showcase. And that Aware was like touring the country, and we were opening for everybody from Hootie and the Blowfish to, at the time it was Matchbox 20, but they
Yeah.
became, or at the time it was Tabitha Secret, and they became Matchbox 20. And then Vertical Horizon, Guster, all these bands, and it was an awesome experience. I mean, it was really great, and I thought we were, you know, just on this kind of trajectory, and after about, well, let's see, it was 94 when I graduated from state, so it was probably 99. We had written a bunch of songs for a movie called The Truth About Cats and Dogs, and it had Janine Garofalo and Uma Thurman in it. And I took the money from that, my portion of the money from that, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna open a mortgage company, of all things. And one of my good buddies from high school and into college, he was a mortgage guy, so I brought the funding for us to kind of go off on our own. He had the licensing and everything, and I learned the business on the fly. And in that process, my assistants at that mortgage company submitted my information without me knowing it to the Bachelor.
So
And
you started the
so
mortgage company what year?
it would have been 99.
Okay. All right.
Yep. And so 2002, they're submitting my information without me knowing it, using my record label's website for any information they needed for a backstory, because they didn't want to have to ask me for any information. And all of a sudden, I get a phone call from a woman named Lacey Pemberton. And Lacey, I've told her this story, so I don't feel bad, but she had this like very scratchy, almost husky voice, and I thought it was a guy trying to sound like a woman. And and here I was. I had a couple knee surgeries in college, but I had reconstructive at this point, and I was rushing back from it, and I ruptured my Achilles on the same leg. So this is 2000, 2001, 2002, and I'm crutching around the office, never heavier. I was probably 240 pounds at that time, and it would have been distributed differently back in 93 and 94 than it was at that point.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for someone to laugh, right? Because they're like, "Hey, is this Bob? Yeah, it's Lacey from The Bachelor." I'm like, "Oh, sure it is, Lacey." And so I'm trying to find one of these loan officers just giggling their pants off at me, and they're not. And so it took about three of those calls for me to realize it was like legit. And they asked me to send in a video. They asked me to do, and I'm like, "No, thank you. I'm not gonna be the fat guy in your blooper reel, but I'm good." And finally, they fly me out, sight unseen, because the lady was just like, "Everyone's begging to be on this show, and you don't seem to care. And I just need to at least put a name with a face here. I got to meet you." And so they flew me out, and I ended up meeting with the producers while I was there. And yeah, the rest was history. They asked me to come on Trista's season of The Bachelorette, which I did, which was literally, I got the walking permission a week and a half before I go on Trista's season. And so I was still a little more portly than I was used to being. And then Oprah thought I was funny, made me her man on the street, and that led to me becoming the Bachelor after that.
Yeah.
So it was pretty crazy.
Well, I just remember, back then, I mean, my wife, watching The Bachelorette, and I'm watching, I'm like, I know that guy. I mean, I know that guy. I mean, Bob Guiney, what's he doing, right? And
Yeah,
and it's funny because in years since, I've had a number of ex-teammates on like the Housewives and stuff, husbands or boyfriends of
sure.
I know that guy. I mean, that's Bob Whitfield, that's Chuck Smith, that's Cordell Stewart, all these guys I played
Yeah.
in Pittsburgh, and so yeah, that was kind of funny to see that, and So, I mean, yeah, I mean, your life gets obviously takes a rocket ship, trip at that point,
It
which
did.
had to be
Yeah.
kind of surreal, right?
It was, it was fun. And well, I mean, I'm sure it was very, there were some similarities, I'm sure, with you. I mean, go off the Steelers and, next thing you
Yeah,
know,
but I
you're in
was
the
a
big
backup
game.
tight end, man. I wasn't the Bachelor.
Right. No,
It's
it's funny. It's one of those things. I actually thought, and this is going to sound like egotistical, but I thought I was already famous from the music thing, right?
right.
So I didn't even realize
Like
how
that
not
was going to take
famous
it
I
to another
was.
level, right? Where you,
Oh my God. Yeah. And no one knew what it was back then either. I mean,
yeah.
it wasn't like today. And I will say, like, the best compliment I ever got from the whole thing came from my brother-in-law, actually, who, he'd been in my family since I was in ninth grade. And he basically was always like, Bobby, if you would have tried to do this, it just wouldn't have happened, right? But instead, you just sort of like clumsily dumb your way into the whole thing. He's like, it's basically like you stepped in a pile of dog do and you peel $100 bill off your shoe. He's like, if you would have tried to make this happen, if you would have submitted yourself for this show because you thought you were all that, if you would have done all these different things, it would have been it probably would have worked out a whole lot differently. But I went into it with this mindset of I don't even know what the hell this is, but we'll give it a shot. Maybe it'll be fun. It'll get me out
Yeah,
of Michigan in February, and which is the most hated month in Michigan, as everyone knows. And it'll get you out of there and let you go and have some fun and try something different. And it's kind of flattering to be included on this whole thing in the first place. And
sure.
the Oprah thing and all that stuff, it just snowballed. And all of a sudden, I was kind of in this situation where I was kind of embarrassed, if I'm being really honest. Like, it was almost at the point where I'm like, I don't feel like I should even be here,
Right.
but here I am, and I'm just gonna make the best of it. And it was a super fun experience, and my family really helped keep me grounded during that period, and made fun of me enough. My family and friends made fun of me enough to make sure that I passed it along to all the bachelors since then. I just did a thing out in LA. I had to fly out for the day to do a bunch of interviews for a podcast I'm a part of, and it was kind of funny because there was this kid there who he's one of the guys who did not he was like one of the finalists for the Bachelorette. And I was having such a good time with this kid at his expense, sadly, and at my own too. But I was like, I'm gonna give you a little piece of advice. He's like, okay. I go, if they ever ask you to be the Bachelor guy, and if you're friends with the guys who are the Bachelor guys, make sure they know, they are not Ben Affleck. Okay, they are handing out flowers on a TV show, and people are gonna cry if they don't get a flower. It has nothing to do with the guy, and that was my mindset going into it too. I remember, everyone's like, how are you, dealing with all this? I'm like, well, I realized every girl here, just like all the guys that were on Trista's season of the Bachelorette, I'm like, we were all overachievers anyway, right? So the idea isn't about this guy being so dreamy or this girl being so great. The idea is these girls have never lost to any other girl at anything. They're always an alpha. They probably captain the cheerleading team, president of the
Yeah,
class, valedictorian, whatever it might be. It's more about not losing to that other girl. It has nothing
sure.
to do with the dude
Right.
handing out the flower,
Yeah.
So I took it from that mindset, and it was a lot of fun from that.
Would you do it all over again?
Because of how my life has turned out, yes. But if I were asked today to do it, hell no. I mean, honestly, it's a young man's game. I can promise you that. Like, it's one of those things where, you're, the sleep deprivation and, you're waiting for food and all you're being handed are vodka and sodas so you do make really bad decisions.
Yeah.
That whole thing, that was a different time in my life. I don't even think my body could handle it today, but it was definitely a ton of fun. And it's kind of like at Michigan State. I mean, it was such a character building experience for me. I'd always been the standout, the star, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
now I'm this guy who, is struggling to get reps, playing Indiana's offense, and so I mean, from that perspective, it was humbling, and I think it was really good for me, like, it really taught me how to look at things a little bit differently and how to handle things differently, and I think, to be honest, I think it really kind of prepared me in a weird way for the Bachelor stuff too, because I didn't go into it thinking it was all about me. I went into it thinking about, like I said, like, addressing it differently. Like,
Yeah.
you girls, you need to get along here. You guys, you're gonna want to be friends with this network of girls because they're all really beautiful and really accomplished people. And you guys aren't competing for this is no prize. This is a
Yeah.
disaster.
I know me.
I know me, and I am
You
not.
shouldn't be
I am not a
crying.
prize. Yeah.
Don't be crying. We've all got our baggage, but So, I mean,
Okay.
I kind of look at it the same way with the NFL, and if I'm hearing you correctly, you wouldn't do it differently, but you wouldn't do it again necessarily.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
Because of what
I
it's
wouldn't.
afforded you,
Yeah,
right? I mean, it's
exactly,
afforded you
exactly.
opportunity and even into what you're doing now, which we'll get into, but how that helps you, right? I mean, it doesn't help to have a little notoriety and
Sure.
people recognize you when it comes to, future business dealings and whatnot.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, it was. Excuse me, it was one of those things where it was like the experience was invaluable and I loved it and I made a ton of friends from it. And I'm one of those guys too, oddly enough, and I think it was just timing wise, but like back then the show was 30 million viewers a week. It was insanity. Now it's still considered a hit and they got like 5 million viewers a week, but it's really big on social media and stuff, which ours wasn't even a presence on, it didn't even exist back then. So I think it was like my experiences were great from it. I made a ton of great friends from it. I had a bunch of wonderful opportunities that lasted me a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, I saw
And
you on Hoda and Jenna for a long time, and I was like,
yeah, yeah.
oh boy, he's still reaping the benefits from all this.
I know. When's this 15 minutes up? And trust me, I was feeling the same way, Mitch. I was sitting there going, "Are you sure you want me back?" Because there's like some really, really cool guys doing it nowadays. But they thankfully, the Hoda and Jenna thing, like Hoda hung on to us for a long time, even when Kathy Lee left, and um, we survived COVID and made it through that. And, I think too, like one of the things that I love that came about from the whole showbiz thing was my band from TV, which was, a bunch of guys. Hugh Laurie from House was our piano player. I'm the singer. James Denton, who was the plumber from Desperate Housewives, our guitar player. It was like this really cool matchup of guys that I would have never met otherwise. And they ended up becoming lifelong friends. And we raised all this money for charity. And, and I used to say it, I was like, man, even though I'm not Dr. House making, $1 million an episode. I'm getting the equal money for my charity, which I appreciated. And from I didn't want, my children's hospital affiliation. I didn't want them to suffer from, them getting the lowest rung of the ladder. And thankfully they made it, kind of favored nations when it came to that mindset. And that took some lobbying, I won't lie. I was like, hey man, I'm singing every damn song up there. I get it. I'm not as necessarily big of a star, but people don't go talk to Hugh Laurie, but they come and talk to me. So I bring some value too. And
You had some Mick Jagger, Keith Richards confrontation there, working it
no, not at all, not at all. But I was predicting it. I was thinking it might happen. And
up.
thankfully I was with the right group of guys where they were looking out for me anyway. And
Well, I mean, hey, man, you've lived a pretty cool life in terms of you got to have the taste of Hollywood. You
yeah,
played Division I football,
right.
kind of and you're a semi rock star, right? I mean, you got to be the front man in the band, all right,
That's true. That's
which
true.
is cool. I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, the band back, your original band, Fat Amy, I mean, heck, that couldn't even happen in today's world, Bob, because you would have had to name it PHAT because you're,
Right.
you're
Yeah.
body shaming people. So,
That's so true. Yeah, it's funny when they had that show oh my gosh, Pitch Perfect, the movie that
yeah,
came out
yeah,
with
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah,
Rebel Wilson, and she was called Fat Amy in the movie, and everyone
yeah.
was like, "Oh, is that where you got your name?" And I said, "No, we,
We were way
we
ahead
were
of
actually, yeah, we were way ahead of the times, I guess." But it was kind of funny, and you're right. I mean, man, we would have been canceled before we even got out of the
her.
gates.
Yeah. All right.
But
So, and you had like we talked about, you had a lot of opportunities that were offshoots of your time on The Bachelorette and The Bachelor,
yeah,
which you've taken advantage of. But you've got you've got your second career, so to speak, post Hollywood. You're wearing the Lincoln Financial shirt. Tell folks, I guess, give us a little
yes.
idea what you're doing now, when that started, and I loved your reference earlier when we were talking about it, that you were doing well in Hollywood, but you felt like you're captain of the JV,
Yeah, man,
which was a great analogy. So you decided
it's so
to
true.
look forward and maybe make a plan B going forward.
Yeah, it's actually a friend of mine who you actually remind me a lot of, Mitch. His name's Jeff Lick, and Jeff is a buddy of mine from junior high and high school. He was a few years older than me. He was an offensive defensive lineman. He actually was the reason I was going to go to Miami of Ohio because he was at Miami of Ohio, scholarship athlete there. Ended up kicking around the pros a little bit as well. He went. I thought he played with the Steelers for a couple years, but I think he was only on the practice squad. I don't think he got brought up, but yeah, he was the guy. He's a hedge fund manager now out of Boston, has been for many years. And he called me. I'll never forget. It was my 42nd birthday. And here I am in LA still. I was on The Bachelor when I was 32. Here I am 10 years later in the Hollywood Hills. I bought this house. I renovated it when I was doing my HETV stuff. And, I was all proud of myself and just bought another one with a partner to renovate. And um, he calls me and he gave me this gut check that only a few people probably could have at that point. It had to be someone I've known for a long time. It couldn't have been a Hollywood person because I would have never listened. But he called me and he said, he's like, "Hey man, so happy birthday, and he's like, "So what's next?" And I go, "Oh well, I just did this and I'm working on that." And he goes, "No, I'm like, I'm serious. What's next?" He's like, "You need to start thinking about your life." And he's like, "I love that you're living this big life. Everyone comes out to visit you and you're the guy out there. You got all these friends and all this stuff." He's like, "But where does it go from here and how do you monetize it? Because sooner or later you're not flavor of the month. And when you're not, Hollywood discards you." He's like, "People with a lot bigger names than you, we haven't seen in movies in years." And I'm like, God, I hadn't even thought about it. I mean, I shouldn't say I hadn't thought about it, but I hadn't really thought of it until that moment. And I took it to heart. I took it as it was intended. And I really looked in the mirror a little bit and kind of did a little gut check. And I thought, I'm doing a lot of work for a couple different Fortune 200 companies that I really like. I like the people, I like the culture. And I wonder if there's something else for me, and how do I get taken seriously and how do I direct this differently than what I'm doing right now? Because at that time, here I was still life of the party guy, roll in, host their awards banquets
Yeah.
or whatever it might be. And I'm the fun guy to party with, and then I'm out, right? And I made good money doing it, but it wasn't, again, a very long-term plan. And I got licensed, not with my series licenses, not in the financial side of things, but licensed from the insurance perspective. And I decided, this seems like I like the people that do what I would essentially be doing, which would be selling group benefits and being on that side of things. I felt like I fit in really well with them. And it was kind of like going back to our Michigan State days. It was like guys you click with right away.
Yeah.
Guys have a similar type of drive that you do, similar type of ambitions. And, I just felt like I connected with these people. And it wasn't just one particular company, but one in particular, which was Lincoln Financial. And so I went and got licensed. And then I used some of the connections I had made to actually get interviews to start talking to them about different things. And thankfully, the guy who came in who is now elevated to the vice president of sales. At the time, he had just taken over in one of the regions, the West region where I was living. And he was like, "Look, I'm going to take a chance on you, but I think you got the right stuff for this." And he's like, "Here's what I want you to think about when you're approaching this career and what to do." And he's like, "But you're going to come in with a target on your back too." He's like, "You're outside the industry. Everyone else here has been here for years."
You're that
He's
guy,
like,
the new guy.
"Yeah,
Thinks he's all
exactly."
that
And
Hollywood boy.
that's it. Hey, Hollywood, exactly. And he's like, you're known as this guy. And so you're going to have to choose what to do with it. And thankfully, how I loved about how he approached it was, "I want you to embrace it, lean into it." He's like, "Don't run away from it." He's like, "Because it's gonna make you different, and you are older coming into this industry." I was 42 when they actually pulled the trigger and hired me. And he was like, "I think that's going to be a huge asset for you, but you got to lean into it." He's like, "If you
Well,
if you shy
I think
away
there's a
from it,
lot of truth to that, man. And I struggle with
yeah,
that coming out of the NFL and getting into retirement planning and whatnot. Because I didn't want to be the guy, hey, I was blocking 300 pounders last week, and now, now I want to help manage your life savings, right?
right,
But
yeah,
the older I've gotten and the longer I've been in it, I realize, man, I should embrace that. Number one, people love football as much as they love movies
yeah,
and Hollywood and all the shows and all that
so
stuff.
true."
So it's
More,
something that people embrace. So yeah, just
yeah.
really have leaned into that and our marketing and our advertising and whatnot. So I think you're smart for doing that.
Yeah, well, I wish I could take the credit for it. It was he actually he encouraged me to do it. And I will say this though, it's a blessing and a curse, right? Because there are times like you were mentioning Hoda and Jenna, there were times when some of the people in some of the positions at the company were like, "What the hell's Bob doing? I just saw him on Hoda and Jenna." And so my response would be like, "Well, what are you doing watching Hoda and Jenna? You should be working." Because I had nothing else to do because they were right. I was doing that. But at the time I didn't have kids. And so, my approach was, well, hey, when all these other guys are going and coaching their kids' sports teams or when they're traveling with their kids' sports teams Thursday through Sunday, I'm not, right? I flew out to New York for 4 hours and flew home.
Yeah. Well, and a lot
Um,
of eyes are on you, and bottom line is, keeps the Bob Guinea
yeah,
alive, right? I mean,
the
it's
brand,
good,
yeah,
good, it's marketing, right?
yeah,
You
yeah.
gotta keep doing that. So
And you got to keep doing it. And yeah, and to what you were saying too. I think it has worked a lot to my advantage from the standpoint of, the majority of the people that are the gatekeepers in my industry. I walk into, a desk at a manufacturing company, and the people are like, "Hey, aren't you the guy from that thing?" And I'm like, "Yeah," and it's a conversation starter, if nothing else, and I think that's been something that's been really helpful for me, is it gives me a lot of stuff to talk about. I think both of our industries, and I mean no disrespect, because I feel like we're both in a similar ilk here, cannot necessarily be the most exciting of industries to talk about, right? Especially mine. I'm going and talking about life insurance, voluntary life insurance, short and long-term disability. People get hurt or people die and they need us, and my product is not the sexiest of products to talk about. So it's kind of nice to talk about other stuff, and then build that rapport, and then be able to say, okay, now let's talk about why I'm really here, and
Yeah.
why I get it. We're not something that you want, but we're something that your family needs, right? And here's why, or whatever. And so I think that's been helpful too, to have some conversation starters to have in there.
Yeah, well, that's great. So looking back on, your time in football versus your time in Hollywood, which one would you say has been more impactful? Not from people recognizing you, because I know
Right.
more people know recognize you from Hollywood than they do
Yeah.
Michigan State. But which one's been more impactful, would you say, in terms of just attacking your this career? I mean, as far as having
I don't
the skills and
yeah.
characteristics and whatnot.
I don't think, well, first of all, I don't think any of it happens without, like I mentioned, the character building experience that I had being coming in as a walk-on at a Division I school. You go into Michigan State, we were Big Ten champs while we were there, and there was so much of it that plays into um, just how you feel about yourself, and how you can look in the mirror every day and go, man, I am doing something here, and I might not be, I'm not out there, like Jim Miller starting every week, but I'm also making a difference, making sure our defense is ready, and making sure and being at the ready and knowing the plays. So when I do get my chance, I have that chance to make a difference. I
Right.
think all of that being character building, and that's why I think team sports are so great, and why my kids will be picking some sports as well as soon as they're, out of diapers. And I, if I'm not the old folk home, that happens. But I think all of that, I don't make it in Hollywood without having that experience ahead of time, and I don't think I have the stones to walk up to the director of a Fortune 200 company, and go, you need to hire me, and here's why, and have him actually go, all right, let's see what you got, and give me the chance, and then to be able to exceed. I think, we just expect guys who have grown up in sports like you and I have, and we expect to win, right? It's like that's the other part, we're gonna lose a little bit, but we're gonna lose and learn. We're gonna win, and we're gonna accomplish what we set our minds to. And I think without that foundation, I wouldn't have made it to get to anything, that I did out
That's
in
cool.
Hollywood.
And yeah, I always say, man, you can't duplicate the football locker room.
No,
Just it's the ultimate team game. There's so many moving parts. It's not you're not a gymnast, you're not a tennis player where it all falls on you. It's
yeah,
you're a part of a greater parts in a greater sum, and it is humbling because you could have your best game ever and you could still get annihilated because the
yeah,
other pieces didn't perform, and it is
right,
it's bigger than ourselves, and I think that's important, and the sooner and I think it's a great life lesson aside from athletics and business, but just life in
yeah,
general, that we're all part of a bigger picture and just part of the game, right? And
I
so
agree.
that's great. Going back to that time, I don't want to let this go because this is, I mean, at Michigan State, I mean, I just remember you were a funny dude. I mean, you were comical, had a great sense of humor and look at life. But you got to tell the fonging story from running. I'll never forget this because I laugh to this day thinking about it because
Yeah,
you're running. I think it was spring ball. I think it was spring
it was
ball.
spring ball, the green and white game,
You-
right far Fong, 238 pivot. Yep. I'll
and
never
coach
forget it.
And Coach Morris Watts wants the play run correctly, and you're trying to get the receiver to go in motion, and he's not seeing you lift your heel, so you got a little bit more demonstrative, picking the
I
whole leg
did.
up, and you're
Oh
trying to
man,
get
I'm like throwing my leg down. I remember it was for the people that didn't know the Michigan State playbook, which I'm sure is pretty much everyone listening, but you right far Fong was fullback in motion strong, right? So I am trying to get our fullback to go in motion to the strong side of the set, and I'm lifting my foot and I'm lifting my leg, and then I'm just basically doing a tap dance there. And the coach comes out and he's like, "Let's go. What's going on, Guinea?" Let's get him in motion. I'm like, coach, he won't fong. I'm trying to get him to fong and he won't fong. And I just remember everybody laughing at that, and I started laughing. It was one of those moments where, it's like you said, man. I mean, I think the biggest thing that comes from sports in general are the relationships. And you look around to a bunch of people that you like and that they like you, and you're like, man, it's blowing up in my face right now, but I'm going to do my best here, and I'll never forget that. I mean, I love that story. I think about it quite a bit because I've noticed one common thread of all my stories is none of them actually make me look good. They're all like me picking on me. But I mean, in that moment, I remember I'm like, Coach, he's not fonging. I can't get him to fong,
And he's losing his mind. Coach Watts was hot. Like, why
Oh,
bring him in motion? He won't fong.
he's not fonging. I don't know what to do. But
I
yeah,
know him
I mean, I
alone. I
had,
remember him. I mean, Jimmy Miller, you mentioned him. Jimmy Miller before when he was still backing up Dan Enos. I remember Coach Watts just laying into him one practice. Golly, Jimmy, we're not gonna be able to go. We're not gonna be able to go fishing later. You're killing all the worms because he had a few hit the dirt that day. And Jimmy's just like, oh man, geez,
I know it.
killing all the damn worms, Jimmy.
Kill all the damn worms, Jimmy. Yeah, I used to love that, man. Him, Norm Parker, those guys. And Norm, I didn't even realize Norm Parker, who was our defensive coordinator at the time, he was my uncle and he were friendly. And I didn't know, my uncle comes to the green and white game. I see them over there talking. So I'm like, what's going on over there? And so I kind of stumble over there and find out that they knew each other from another world, and it's kind of
That's
like just
funny.
this kind of cool small world when everyone starts getting together like that. But yeah, I loved running India when we were up in the Huntington Lounge there at Spartan Stadium
Yeah.
and seeing you and your family and it was great because I'm trying I wanted to get my boys to a game this year, at least my 6-year-old for sure. He just turned
Yeah.
6 December 3rd, but I was trying hard to get him to a game this year, but we had so many night games that it just
Yeah.
wasn't when it worked out for my
That's
schedule. I'm
too
like, I
late for
just can't.
me, much less your kids.
Me too. I mean, I can't do it anymore, man. Yeah, it's like,
Spent
how do
my
I
whole
keep a
life
six
wanting
year
to
old
stay.
who's,
I wanted to spend my whole life wanting to be an adult so I could stay up past 9 o'clock, and then I got to be an adult, and I don't want to stay up behind 9 o'clock anyway.
I don't either, buddy. I don't either. I'm right there with you. The joy of my life, and this really is at this age with my kids, is 'cause we're all at work all day, everything, and it's getting to put them to sleep at night. Like I love getting home and time to have dinner, and then it's my job, it's daddy's job to put the boys to sleep. And 9 times out of 10, I go to sleep with them, right? And their bedtime is one's at 7:30, the other's at 8. So I'm right in there, man. About 9 o'clock, I'm thinking, man, what is going on? Why am I not asleep by now?
And then your wife Jessica's coming in there to wake you up.
Oh yeah. Are you going to come in? I'm like, no, I'm good. Actually, I think she really enjoys it when I fall asleep with the boys because she's getting her own time watching. She's watching a whole bunch of new shows on Netflix right now, so she's really enjoying my time away.
Well, our baby Grace, who's 19 now and off to school, I used to always, say prayers with her, and I'd sing to her, sing songs to her, and I wasn't Bob Guiney level, but I was pretty good, I'd like to
I
think.
bet you're pretty good, buddy.
Busting out some REO Speedwagon and whatever, these classic rocks. But I inevitably I would fall asleep, and Angela would like poke her head in. Are you coming to bed or not?
Yeah.
Those
I
nightly
wish I wish
getting
Jessica would do
myself
that
to
more
sleep.
because I literally I fall asleep. I would say at least 3 nights a week in our oldest Grayson's room. I lay down with him, I read a story, I sing some songs, say our prayers, and by the time I wake up, it's 11 o'clock at night. So if I had work to do, it's not getting done on that night, and
Yeah.
it's uh
Yeah.
it's just one of those things. And I still go back and forth a lot to like LA and New York. So my time frames are like, well, LA especially. Like I went
Right.
last week for like literally a day trip. I flew out, was there from I think my flight got super delayed, so I landed at like 3 in the afternoon. I was on the 5:30 a.m. back home, and everyone's like, "Why are you doing that?" And I'm like, "Well, because I want to get home. First and foremost, I want my kids. I want to be home when my kids get home from school because I was gone last night, didn't put them to bed, so I want them to know that daddy's everything's good. And it's just amazing how your priorities change, right? I
Oh,
mean, it's like,
absolutely, man. So
yeah.
let's hit on that a little bit, and then I'll let you go. But so you started, having kids a little later in life. My baby's off to college, and you've got 6 and 3-year-old sons. So
Yeah,
let's talk about that, man. How's that? It's the greatest blessing in the world, obviously.
it
But
truly is.
did you?
Yeah.
I guess did you envision having kids earlier in life, or maybe not, or
Yeah, I always thought I was going to be a dad. I mean, half the reason, that whole mortgage company moved back in '99, it wasn't to launch a TV career, that's for sure. I was watching our friends then,
yeah,
having kids and I was like, man, yeah, I'm the guy that's driving around on a tour bus and everyone thinks that's awesome, but I'm like opening for everybody. Like, when am I going to be Journey or when am I moving on?
Yeah. Right.
And I meant, and it was intentional. Like, I thought, okay, I'm going to get married, I'm going to have a family, and I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do. And then, life's what happens when you're busy making other plans, right? And all of a sudden, boom, here you go.
Yeah.
Which fast forward, a few years later, I did get married and divorced. We didn't have children, thankfully. And we're still actually strangely very connected in a lot of different ways. Her husband after me and I are friendly, and my wife's, there. And it was more of a thing where we were both these Hollywood things going all over the place. And it was like, I get why so many relationships out there implode. It's not all just narcissism, which a lot
Right.
of it probably is, but it's also a lot of living these separate lives that just,
Sure.
if you don't cater to it, you don't take time for it, and I was kind of of the mindset, okay, I guess I'm never getting married. I guess I'm never having kids, because I was a certain age. I was in my late 30s and divorced. And I'm like, I guess this isn't happening for me. So then I met my wife. Oddly enough, I was hosting a show for Sirius XM, and my co-host introduced me to her, and she wasn't even on the radar, and I wasn't on her radar, And it was one of those things where we just sort of gravitated to one another. And I was watching her with other people's kids, and I was like, it was a very attractive quality. I was
Mm.
like, man, she's so good with these kids, and it was genuine. It wasn't something that, like, she was putting on an act to be nice to a kid. And then, I was watching her and I thought, God, I think I would really enjoy getting to know her more, and as I did, it became more of a thing where it was like, I knew I wanted to have a family, and I just knew it had to be with her, and
Cool, man.
since she's an LA girl, I will tell you, the ultimate sacrifice for her, she moved back to Michigan with us, and she's not a winter lover by any means, and but I'm thankful, and I'll always be thankful for this. My dad, when we had Grayson, we were living in Seattle at the time, and my dad came out to meet his grandson, and I just felt like something was up. I would always see my parents around the summer holidays, never, in Christmas and stuff like that. But and so we moved back home, when we had Grayson, and I got to spend my dad's last 2 years of his life with him, and we were during that COVID lockdown,
Yeah.
and had it not been for being here, I would have never seen him, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, no one was traveling, and
Right.
and I'm so thankful that I had that time with him, and he got to know both of his grandsons, because he got to know Blake. Blake was born in July. My dad passed in September, but at least he knew it. He knew that, this was it, right? I did what he was hoped I would have done, and I was pretty proud of that. So yeah, I'm thankful for that.
I'm happy for you, man. I lost my pops too a couple just a year and a half ago, and been there, done that. It's tough,
Yeah, it's tough.
but man, the thing it just hits home when you lose your parents like that, about how important it is to just pour into your kids' lives, right? Because you know how
Yeah,
impactful your parents were. I mean, it still hits
yeah.
me emotionally, driving down the
Me
road.
too. I'm
Not
got
coming
choked up.
down.
Yeah,
We're talking, yeah, just talking about it. I mean, just grief is a difficult thing, man, and
it
you
is.
can't time it up well.
No,
It hits you when
yeah.
it wants to hit you, man.
Yeah, and you don't process it the way you hope you're going to. I mean, yeah, I'll get to talking about stuff. Like, I was talking to this buddy of mine the other day who was he's a pilot, and he's like, oh yeah, and the one thing my dad wanted me to do, right, was my dad. 'Cause my dad was a cop, but he loved flying planes. He became a pilot,
Yeah.
and all he wanted me to do was to fly with him, and I would fly with him, but I had no interest in learning how to fly. And I'm like, why didn't I do that for him? And then I was in Boy Scouts, I was a Life Scout by the time I was 12, and I could have been an Eagle Scout. You had 6 more years to get your Eagle Scout. That's all my dad wanted. I didn't do it. I was like,
Wasn't
I was
your
done with it.
passion. I did. I
I
had the
moved
same thing,
into,
man. My dad was
yeah,
he was a musician, right? He played all kinds of instruments to the day he died. I mean, literally till a month before he died of lung cancer, he was playing a
wow,
Christmas concert. I mean, but yeah, trumpet. And
amazing.
so I played trumpet, fifth to eighth grade, and I mean, I remember vividly having to tell him, Dad, I don't want to play in high school.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
wasn't my thing, right? And he was cool about it, but I know it hurt. I knew it hurt him because that was his
yeah,
passion. Not that he
yeah,
expressed that hurt, but I knew it did. So yeah, that's tough. But hey, where I was going with that though is just to know the impact that our parents had on us, man. It's just being a parent, and I implore you, and I know you get it, but just man, pour into your boys because mine are
yeah.
all out of high school now, and one in college, the rest of them are beyond that even, but. Just the impact you can have, and now we're starting to have grandkids, so it's kind of the
Oh,
do-over thing where you get to
love it.
pour into some little ones again, which is fun, without having to change diapers and discipline and all
Yeah,
that. So it's even better.
yeah. You got the good side of that ride. I'm gonna be the guy showing up at T-ball, and they're gonna be like, "Your grandpa's so nice being here," and that's like, that's my dad.
Well, hey,
Yeah,
you don't
that's
look your age, man. So
ah, thanks,
hopefully you
buddy.
can hang on. Keep applying that skin treatment and everything else you got going, man.
Yeah, my balm, all my Hollywood balm.
You're
That's all I
doing
got
something
left
right,
over from
man.
the run. You look great too, man. I can't
Ah,
believe that we're the age we are.
yeah. I try to fool them as long as I can, like my NFL career. Try to fool them as long as you can, man, before they ask you to leave.
Hey, buddy, that was me in Hollywood, man. I realized that after a while, I'm like, I think the gig is up. They're gonna see through this whole thing pretty soon, right? So I might as well just move on.
Well, Bob, I
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on. It's great catching up, and I appreciate sharing with everybody. I know people enjoyed this. If you did enjoy this, please subscribe and check it out. We've got a great bunch of great guests in addition to Bob on the YouTube channel and all the podcast platforms. So check us out, the Lyons Share. Again, this episode brought to you by Mitch Lyons Wealth, your best game plan to protect, grow, and win retirement. And we'll see you next time. Bob, again, thanks a lot, buddy.
Thank you, Mitch. Great talking to you, brother.